Hello, I'm Cara Dahl Russell. We continue talking about the Arthurian tales as part of our series Courtly Love and the Cult of the Virgin. Today, talking about the lady as inspiration and obstruction, specifically in the tales of Camelot. Yesterday, we talked about how the character of Lancelot in the tales of King Arthur represented the basics we know about ideas of chivalry and courtly love. It is for aristocrats, it is ritualistic, and it is secret because it is adulterous. It is adulterous because nobility were promised at birth and married in their early teens. And with songs and poetry and love notes being part of the ritual, it also bore an implication of literacy, which again was only for aristocrats. But this, too, was part of the changes within this really phenomenal 200-year period. By the mid-1200s, middle-class tradesmen, peasants, and much of the nobility could also read and write a bit. Education was growing along with new social ideals. We had mentioned that the early jousts were basically free-for-all battles. The church's attempts to curtail the reckless slaughter was beginning to take hold by 1100. The idea we have of a joust as a confined arena with the court watching a very prescribed performance were all part of these growing ideas of civilized behavior, courtly behavior, and having a higher set of personal and religious goals. The image of the lady bestowing her kerchief to show her favor to a particular knight were all part of this later reality, including the wall that separated the knights who were jousting. These changes in jousting had a very useful purpose. Instead of two well-trained knights killing or maiming one another in open battle, the restricted area, the wall between, these things helped ensure that your well-trained investment can show his skill but live to fight another day. It also meant that ladies could be present to inspire the heroic behavior by their favor and by their presence. You will be aware this is another change for women into a larger sphere, not just outside her usual apartments, but outside the castle entirely. Of course, this greater movement and freedom of women was awfully distracting. The presence of a woman could not only inspire higher behavior, it could also be a distraction from focusing on the task at hand, especially when courtly behavior required you to be so very attentive. The presence of women in a larger public sphere could also mean a greater risk of public exposure of an illicit love, and this could lead to jealousy and aggressions amongst the men. Many of the chivalric tales are devoted to the problems of the extremes that courtly love poses for a knight. He could be too distracted by his lady and lose his skill, thereby being unworthy of her love, or conversely, he could be too devoted to his fighting and lose her affection. The Arthurian tales contain both images of women as an inspiration and woman as an obstruction to duty. Guinevere herself represents both the inspiration of Lancelot's knightly prowess in winning her favor and his extreme downfall by making him break his loyalty to his king. But as we tend ultimately to root for lovers, even illicit ones, the tales also include a darker image of the obstructive woman, a pagan one, Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay as a character existed on her own before the Arthurian tales as part of folklore, and having taken a variety of forms previously, she seems to rightly take her magical place alongside Merlin in the Arthur tales as something as an amalgam of characters. Morgan or Morcant is traditionally a male name, equating to Morrigu or Morrigan, the Celtic goddess of death, who shrieked over the battlefields, collecting skulls of the soldiers as trophies, and Le Fay as a direct reference to her being a fairy. There is also a possible connection with a river goddess, so perhaps a duality with the Lady of the Lake as well. In some versions of the tale of Gawain, she is also a shapeshifter, like her husband the Green Knight, both of them associated with lust and annual pagan ritual. We'll explore that tale more on Monday. In the musical Camelot, she is all these things. Her song, Follow Me, tells us her home is beneath the sea. She is a seductress, She is mischievous like a fairy and brings death and destruction. Between Guinevere and Morgan Le Fay, we have both images of women from the Arthurian tales brought to life: the woman who inspires heroic deeds, and the evil woman who pulls men away from everything good. And what better way to revisit these ideas of womanhood and these ideas of chivalry and courtly love in the Arthurian tales than to share selections from Camelot, the Lerner and Lowe musical, from the original Broadway cast recording.